Welcome back to Ladies Who Create, a show where we'll be interviewing the incredibly inspiring women who are trailblazing the design and creative industries. I'm your co-host, Liz Meyer, a creative director and half of a Datalands duo.
And I'm your other co-host, Jess Rosenberg, and I'm a creative director currently working in the tech industry. In this episode, we're honored to be joined by the incredibly talented Sneha Sankar. Sneha's journey from growing up with no designers in her family to becoming a leading independent designer is nothing short of remarkable. In this episode, we discuss Sneha's career trajectory, including her love for typography, her experiences in the tech industry, and her passion for Web3 projects. Sneha also shares some invaluable insights on the importance of mentorship, the power of sharing knowledge, and how she navigates the evolving landscape of design. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out in the creative field, this episode is packed with inspiration and practical advice. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Hello, welcome to Ladies Who Create. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor, to be here.
Well, we're really excited to chat and learn all about you and your impressive career. I guess that leads us to the first question or talking point. Did you have a point throughout your life, maybe in your childhood, where you just knew that you wanted to be a designer? Was there like that light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't have anyone in my family who is a designer. I was actually really asking my mom, like, do I have any, extended family or anyone who's in this field? Not really. I think I have one like distant aunt or something who was in advertising or something like that, but never grew up around her, so didn't have that influence. But I always, like most people who are in design or any kind of art or creative field, I love drawing. I loved art. I love just kind of getting my hands dirty. I watched a lot of Art Attack as a kid and tried to make a lot of the stuff from that. And I think that and I had a lot of different interests as a kid, and it wasn't particularly like I didn't like something else. And this was the thing that felt like, the thing that I needed to do. But I thought it would be quite cool to make a career out of this. Like, what could people who like drawing do? And then, of course, I started with, okay, I want to become an artist. And I realized, poor, and like, this is difficult. Then I was just like, okay, I want to be a cartoonist. And I realized people don't do that anymore. Like, then I'm just learning, like I'm learning about new professions and kind of rationalizing them as I'm growing older. And then I went to animator and then finally kind of settled on wanting to be an architect, which in my, I guess, considering my Indian background as well, it was a career you could bet on. It was close to like engineering and things like that. Not that my parents ever put any kind of expectations or pressure on what career I need to choose, but it just kind of felt to me like a real job, like something you get a real degree for and you can, be legit. So out of school, that's kind of where I landed up. I was just like, I need to study architecture. And a big part of that was because I really enjoyed the furniture store IKEA. I grew up going to the store a lot, and it was just it was like an amusement park for me. Just I'd like time would pass by there so easy, and it seemed like a lot of the stuff that made IKEA special was because designers worked on that, and like they did something there which I didn't know what it was. And for me, with like all of the graphic textiles or like the furniture, and everything being kind of an interesting take on something that was simple. I thought that, okay, after architecture, I would do like interior design, and that's kind of what I should be doing next. But it didn't seem like I didn't have a lot of options, or at least I didn't know many options where I could directly study interior design right out of school, out of high school. So so that's kind of like the background as to how I finally ended up narrowing in on design. But as the story goes, I did not really want to do interior design once I finally learned more about design. I went to design school. I went to school where in the first year, everyone does the same thing. We have like a foundation year. And I was really bad with material and with tools and with, I hated the workshop. I had a lot of migraines. I just did not like the place at all. And I wish I liked it. I was really trying to like it, but I didn't. And simultaneously, I was being exposed to a lot of typography. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of the term or like the thing in itself. And like, I can't understate how much it blew my mind and how, it was almost like I could hear like people sing in the background. Like I just loved it. I thought it was so cool that you could do that with letters and that there was just so much that you could do with writing. And I realized that I had been doing a lot of this when I was a kid. Like I used to draw, like make greeting cards. I used to make posters and they used to be like elaborate projects for me. I just did not have the terminology or any of the know-how to know what it was about. And as soon as I found that, I was just like, okay, typography, graphic design, that's where I need to be. And like everything else kind of vanished.
I feel like a lot of people kind of go through that similar winding road of discovery. And I think it brings you to a really interesting place when you finally figure it out and you decide that that's your thing. I love that. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I had a very allergic reaction to industrial design or anything three-dimensional my freshman year too. Like severely allergic. That's a sign for when I knew that 3D was not for me.
Yeah. And what I was going to say was I hated being bad at something I thought I wanted to do. And that doesn't, like I've been pretty sure about like what I wanted to do and what I like doing until that point. So this was just like, it was fun. And I was so glad that I was wrong, you know?
It's good that you discovered that earlier than later, than like after you graduate. That would be, man. Can you tell us a little bit about like your career journey and like so after you graduated school, did you do an internship or where did you end up?
Yeah.
Or where did you land rather?
Yeah. So I think during my time in school, I did a couple of internships. One at a smaller studio, like a brand graphic design studio, and then one also at an advertising agency. And I realized I didn't want to work in advertising. Didn't really like that. Studio experience was really good, but I didn't have any strong feeling apart from advertising that I wanted to do or not do. So after graduation, I was just kind of applying everywhere. Companies that I resonated with, people I thought were cool. And one of the things that I owe a lot of the opportunities that I've got to Twitter and people that I've met on the internet. And one of those was this company called Unacademy that I joined as my first job. It's an education technology company, a startup based out of Bangalore where I live. And I've been here now for 6 years. So I just kind of spoke with the head of design, really like enjoyed our conversation. And I had never lived in Bangalore. In fact, before graduation, like before college, I had never lived in India. I grew up outside of India my whole life. So it's going to be a new experience for me to live outside of university, outside, like for the first time in India. But yeah, it seemed like it could be exciting. So I just kind of packed my things and moved to Bangalore. But yeah, so I worked there. I joined the product design team actually. So there was a design team nested inside the product team. And then there was another design team nested inside the marketing team. And I joined the product one as an illustrator. I don't consider myself an illustrator. I'm more a designer who can illustrate. And yeah, some of the initial projects that I did were like product illustration. But I mean, the more time I spent there and just kind of was hearing things, trying to understand what kinds of opportunities I can make the most out of, I realized that there's like a gap between marketing and product that nobody was kind of addressing from a design point of view. So like within 8 months of my being in the product team, through some projects, through like kind of consolidating the brand, um, I made a case to start a new team, which is a centralized team. And again, I did not know I did not know the term brand design. I did not know about this kind of existing in many companies. But I had a few reference points. I had heard about like Airbnb having a similar model where they had a central design team and everyone kind of worked out of that field. Also, Spotify was one where they had like the board and squad structure, which I thought was cool. So I was reading all of these things, but there was nothing of the type, as far as I knew, in the Indian startup or like tech company scene. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna see how this goes. And also like there were some challenges in leadership, and I was basically filling in a gap. So within 8 months, I started my own team and was leading a couple of designers, and I grew that team to about 8 people. And and we did this particular team outside of the product design work, all of the stuff that would happen in the app. We would do all the design work for the company. So anything from marketing, sales, business, for like the team. And I learned a lot from that experience. One, because I was doing everything for the first time, but also there's so much, I had so much trust and like faith that people put in somebody who was just like right out of college. And I got to learn on the job, which was great. Then I joined a couple of other tech companies after that. My background has been almost exclusively in the tech space. I've always kind of been the brand designer amongst product designers. And I quite enjoy that because, they asked me for my opinions on typography and color and things like that, which is great.
I love being that person too. Like the go-to on the team of like a bunch of tech people. It's always really fun when you're like, well, this is what you're supposed to use.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Oh.
What would you say? That's such a huge role and opportunity and like huge win for you to be right out of school and getting to pitch a new type of team within a company for the first time, lead a team that's fairly large. What would you say your biggest learning was from that?
I learned a lot about how little people know about design and what it can do for you. And like more than half the job was kind of meeting people where they're at and talking to them about how we might be able to help them. And they didn't really care about what we thought we could do, but more about how we could help them. So that was it was really a lot about relationship, about cutting out all the jargon, about educating people about why this is better or how it will aid them, and then kind of showing those results and having them experience why it's better, and then watching them kind of come back to you with bigger projects and more exciting challenges. So that's something I really enjoyed because until that point, I had been surrounded by designers as somebody who went to design school. So I kind of took for granted what people might think is important or not important. For example, like when I joined an academy, one of the things that completely threw me off was there was no logo file for like the logo. And this was a company that was like a year or so in. And every time someone would need the logo, they would have the symbol and they would type out the word marco in the font. That was the logo. And I kind of estimate the color. But it was not important for the people at the company,
Scary.
like they were doing important things. And I had to kind of convince everyone through doing it why that was important and how much time it will save them or how much trust it will help build if the colors are consistent, things like that. So I learned not to shame people for not knowing these things. I know why it might be important and how it's helpful to do something about it, but people are doing their job and that's what they're for. So I learned a lot of respect and I learned to meet people where they're at.
Oh, that gave me like a heart palpitation when you
You didn't have a logo. Oh,
Yeah,
stressful.
that was my reaction.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, that sort of thing is a small win for someone like you or your team. It's like, oh, let me just fix that for you real quick and save you a ton of time, and it will be better quality, and everyone's happy in the end.
Yeah, and now,
Yeah, and then like it like builds the trust over time,
yeah,
the team, like a beautiful trust building exercise.
and I'm just so happy. Like it's been a few years since I left, but the brand has grown like so big. And here in India, one of the biggest events that we have every year is the Indian Premier League, which is a cricket tournament, the sport, and it's huge. It's easily the biggest event that happens. And a couple of years back, An Academy was one of the sponsors. Like, brand was featured all over television, in physical spaces, in like in every medium possible. And I was, it was a real proud moment for me to see like where we started and like how easily the brand has now scaled and is doing like so many big cool things. So yeah, the brand now is just like bigger than I could imagine. I'm so happy about that.
Amazing. That's so cool. It's kind of like seeing your baby grow up in the world and flourish. And as a parent, you like step away when they become an adult, and
Yeah.
see them thrive without you being there anymore.
Yeah. And it was one of those moments where people who never knew what I do for work could see like the kind of work that I do. So every time now, my granddad, for example, every time there's an article in the newspaper about An Academy, he sends it to me. It may or may not be related to anything I do. It's been a while since I worked there, but he'll send me all news, good or bad, about the company. And yeah, it's really nice.
Cool. That's such a great way to connect with like relatives and grandparents. I remember I worked at a company where my grandma finally would like see the brand in the newspapers or on the news, and she'd be like, I kind of know what you do now. I at least know that you work for that company. And I'm like, great. Well, so good that you are connected to my life in that way and have a baseline understanding.
Yeah, it's hard for people to understand what graphic designers actually do. Like, I don't know why I still find it hard to explain sometimes when I meet someone that has no concept of what design or art really is, like commercial art. And it's very fun to try to figure out how to explain it in a way that they can understand. So it's helpful if you have your logo plastered all over, this major sporting event.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I can't take credit for designing the logo. That was like by one of the co-founders. But yeah, we just kind of put the brand together and all of that. But I still take credit for what the brand is right now.
Yeah.
After having such a big impact, where you were full time, what made you decide to go and start your own independent practice?
Yeah. I didn't leave my work or like my job, my full-time job at the tech company, because all of it, except for one experience, I never really left because I didn't like it. I just left because I felt like I had done my time, and like I almost feel a sense of I'm not really being challenged as much as I would like anymore, and I wanna almost uh, put myself like through the rope and like really challenge myself. I also felt like, for the same reason that I got this opportunity so early in my career to lead a team, not just imposter syndrome, but also felt a genuine sense of this can't be it. Like, I can't, if I continue on this path, it would be great for like my career progress. Like, I will grow, probably get paid more money, grow in designation, things like that. But at some point, if I need to leave, or like if I want to leave, I don't know if I would have the skills that are required or relevant to like what people would expect of me, because I've had it just in one place. And I also, someone told me about this, which is like job specific skills and like industry specific skills. And then of course like whatever your profession is. And I felt like I had a lot of job specific skills. And I was worried that if I don't start getting really in the work and being really bad at what I do for some time, or being around people who are way more better than I am, um, it's gonna be bad. So I was not happy about that. So that's how I kind of started seeking out like other roles and things like that. And there was an opportunity to start like a consultancy with two other designers who are product designers. The agency is Prophecy. And our idea was just kind of to see, again, we didn't know each other that well when we started out. We knew of each other, but we wanted to see how it would be to work together and if we enjoyed working together. And also, um, I brought like the brand design lens to the consultancy, and both of them the product design strategic factors. So together, we thought that we could offer like a full stack service to clients. And we worked together for a year, and that was just kind of like my test drive, because I didn't feel like I was doing an independent practice, but I kind of was. I still had one of the two people that I was working with. He had worked at a consultancy before, so he had a lot of skills to do with consulting. How do you facilitate? How do you do sales calls? Like, how do you make proposals? Like lots of things like that. That I always, it was just like a Slack message away for me to kind of ask questions or learn from. So this was like during the pandemic, like 2021. And through that year, although I really enjoyed working with them, I realized that I really wanted to double down on brand work that I enjoy doing, because what I learned in my full-time job and also through working with them is that oftentimes you get kind of involved in a lot of other things that don't allow you to do the work, like to get in and start like typesetting or like changing the head code and things like that. And I became a designer and became a graphic designer because I love doing that. And that's where I really derive my satisfaction. So I wanted to just kind of give myself a chance to see if I could do this on my own. So I ended up here not very intentionally. It was just kind of a series of coincidences and things like that. But when I did make a choice where I was just like, I want to try this. I want to give this a shot. Also because I felt like I wanted to invest in myself and this opportunity for me to learn and make mistakes and take risks. So if it meant doing projects that weren't such a good idea, I would take on those mistakes myself rather than allowing my co-founders of the consultancy to also kind of bear those risks because they were more experienced than me at that point. So so I decided that again we could the both of them and I could collaborate on projects as required, but I didn't want to make a full-time commitment to that. So that's kind of how I became an independent designer after 1 year of trying that out. I've been here now for, including that 1 year is 3 years. I kind of count that year. So 3 years actually, almost to the day, because it's like April, the beginning of April is when I started.
Happy 3-year anniversary almost.
Thank you.
How did you get involved in like the Web3 movement from the Prophecy days to now? Because I know you're in We3, which is really awesome. Just how did you get into all of that amazing, industry defining work?
I think I will, like I said, I've always kind of been very fascinated by technology, like new things happening, especially like internet culture. I'm very into like the internet. I love things that are happening I'm very online, like I'm terminally online, I think. So I think when my sister, who's a few years younger than me, when she knows things about the internet that I don't, I genuinely get upset. But apart from that, I pride myself on knowing stuff, especially in the tech world. And I think around that time, like 2020, 2021, there was just a lot of like interest in the blockchain, cryptocurrency, like Web3 world. And I'm genuinely curious just to know more, to learn more. And I think uh, through a couple of opportunities to work on projects, people like the clients were willing to teach me about the space, which is like a win-win for me because I get to do what I'm good at, get paid for it, and learn something I'm interested in. Amazing. Like I nailed it. So that's kind of how I got into it, where uh, through projects, through interesting people. Another thing that I noticed around that time is that so many of the designers and people who I've always admired and whose work and also their opinions and thoughts that I always thought were kind of cool were were also kind of curious and in the space or trying to get involved. So I felt like I want to know what it is about it that is attracting everyone and I mean, yeah, it is a bit of like shiny object, FOMO driven for sure. But I'm not one of those people who feels like I didn't put all my eggs in that basket. I do think that it is like one of the things that I'm curious about and like I still think has a lot of um interesting ideas and concepts that are being worked on. But I think that about a lot of different technologies uh, that I come across and things that I get to learn. And which is one of the reasons why I love being an independent designer, because every project is like an opportunity for me to learn something I didn't know about through my clients, through like the founders, and because they're really passionate about their company and what they're doing, it really feeds into how I get to learn something. And yeah, designing like a brand for that is great.
Yeah, I noticed that Web3 people are so passionate about their work or anything that they're working on. They get just extremely excited when they get to talk about it. And I think it maybe is like they don't have the amount of pressure, like the VC pressure from typical startups. So
I
they're
think
allowed
it's
to still
yeah,
feel
I think it's a couple
I
of
don't know.
things. Like one is for sure, it's very I think it's a very like value driven, like mission driven kind of space because it's a bit like anti-incumbent. Like that's the idea at least. Of course, it's not all good. Like there are of course bad actors, but I think that there is a sense of like we're tired of the way the internet is running now. We have a thesis on how it should be, and that's what we want to build. So I think that's very exciting. For me personally, as a designer, the reason why I was really excited by it, apart from like cool people doing cool things, was I feel like with the products, apps, things like that I was kind of working on until that point, they had set at that point, like by now, there's set a cadence of like what people expect and like what is a good brand in this space. There is some kind of homogeneity and also like guideline driven work. But with Web3, because a lot of those paradigms have not been created yet, they would not like, people don't know what things should look like. It's an opportunity to do a lot of weird and like wacky things. So I really was very excited by that because I was just like, I don't have to kind of follow the same rules. I get an opportunity to just ask questions at every step. And like for example, the first project that I worked on, we like open sourced the brand. We just shared everything, uh, all the entire brand identity, all the assets, including like the strategy, everything is just available in public. We'll like share the process, invited people to be like to share opinions and things like that. And I wasn't familiar with a lot of that work being done, especially at my level where like it's not like it's smaller projects, so people are a little bit risk averse in the Web2 world at that point. I don't feel that anymore though, because I think that a lot of these things normalize. So like Web3 went through a real hype cycle, and now it's kind of normalized in some ways, which may not be a bad thing. Yeah, but I hope I still get to do weird and wacky work across the board.
Yeah, we like weird. We like weird over here.
Fan. Well, aside from Web3, are there other industries that you've loved working with and for?
I think tech overall, the tech industry is very exciting to me because it's always like, there's always a prefix to that. It's like ed tech or fintech or whatever, or some tech. So that way it's like tech in the context of something else. So it's a great way to be a part of different spaces. I really like, I wanted to work with a lot of like women founders and on products that are specifically made with women in mind, because I do think that there aren't so many of them. I found a couple of opportunities, but I would really like to do more of those where um it's unabashedly by women for women. And I feel very strongly about that because I feel like there's nothing wrong in building products for everyone, but I do think that there are there are use cases for intersectionality in how we develop tech and products. And I mean, women is not even such a niche category. It's like 50% of the world. So I still feel like there are so many things that are misunderstood, uh, misrepresented, or and just kind of lack of attention, funding, things like that. So things built by women, but also things built for women. And if by women and for women, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a win-win.
Maybe you have to build it. I think it's like, I mean, not have to. You don't have to. Maybe should build it is what I should have said.
Yeah. I know there will come a point where like I feel like, okay, it's not happening. It's just time that I did put my money where my mouth is. But yeah,
Yeah, I think like that's where this podcast came out of, that feeling that there wasn't a place, or there wasn't something that we could listen to people like us talking about the stuff that we deal with every day, like clients and in-house issues and, you know, our career trajectories and all that stuff. I always felt like I was traveling down a road by myself, like I'm in a bubble, just that I'm doing it on my own and I have to just figure it out and I don't know how. So it's taken me a long time to get to a certain point. Whereas if we all just shared the information that we were learning on the job, we all probably could like collectively get better and get to that place a little bit quicker. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always think about like tech and what I could contribute to tech as a designer and like what could I found that would make a difference in my life. And I don't know. I don't have no idea. So, I mean, maybe one day I'll figure that out and then I'll be like a founder of something. But
Hey, we're co-founders of the podcast, Liz. Don't forget that.
we are. Yes, it's true. It'll be a media empire at some point.
I've always thought that like what makes something legitimate enough to say you're the co-founder of it, like is a newsletter something you co-found? Is or, like I've toyed with this idea a lot where I was just like, is only a company something you can found? I don't know. But I really resonate with what you said about like, I've learned a lot from like resources online. Well, I love podcasts. I love blogs. I read and like listen to a lot of the stuff that's available online. Because like you said, like I've had a lot of challenges finding mentorship and resources online. Not resources like people, And not online. I mean, like in my work and things like that. I found it hard to find people who can take me under their wing and like teach me what they know. And for a long time, I've struggled with whether that's a me problem or like a they problem or like, I don't know what it is, but it's not worked out very well for me where I think maybe my expectations, it was like a mismatch or something like that. So I really value when people share what they know. And it doesn't have to be advice. It could just be anecdotal, experiential. I think that I've learned a lot about my own practice. I experiment with a lot of things that I read online from a lot of people whose work I admire or whose career trajectory I've thought was very cool. So retweet, save them, try to implement them.
I would love to see all of your saved tweets because that I feel like there are these amazing resources that are hidden. They're like locked away in everyone's accounts. And they like if we aggregated all of that, those little like nuggets of information, oh my gosh, that would be like an MBA in creative leadership. Like I just want to know.
There's some career accounts that I feel like are just like that, like MBAs. The first one that comes to mind, Sahil Bloom. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but all of his posts are like how to do blank in 10 steps. I'm just like, save, save, save. Do I ever come back to them? Maybe like 10% of the time. In the moment, I'm just like, there is so much helpful content on the internet. And it makes me think back to when I first became a manager. And I don't know if like as much information wasn't as readily available on the internet back then, or I just didn't look for it, or maybe it was a combination of both. But at least now there is no excuse for people who are doing new things in their career to not lean into finding and absorbing all that information, especially on Twitter, LinkedIn, because it's there.
Yeah, I
feel like folks are
that was all in book.
Yeah, people are more generous than now, I feel like, especially with the economic downturn and after the pandemic and everyone being online and remote. So there's just a lot of folks I'm seeing being generous with their advice and their time and their advice on the internet for free. So there's no better time to doing.
Yeah. And you're so right. Like,
There's so much now.
With women also.
So much.
Yeah, I was gonna say that also. Like it's the opposite problem now where there's so much. Like how do you filter it? Like how do you navigate through the BS and take what like actually valuable? But also I found that as women, one of the smaller things I personally find a lot of merit in is like sharing is net positive. Like I feel like a lot of we don't know is because like nobody has done it before, like especially conversations around money or like your profession and like personal life and lots of things like that, which people kind of assume to be not something that people should share. Learned a lot from people who've been generous about sharing it. So feel like the least that I could do is to share that whenever it makes sense. Yeah, for example, like I teach a brand design course to like early career course, and we have an entire like module where we just talk about money. We just talk about like with numbers and how much money you can ask for or like how much money I got paid for X, Y, and Z. But not because it does make anyone feel bad or anything like that. But I just think that when I learned about how much money people make for something, it blew my mind. I didn't think it was possible, and it just opens up open ideas that you never had before. And it's not just about money. I think that there are so many projects and clients that when I see that people I've worked with, that's the first time it crosses my mind that, oh yes, like they probably work with a designer and it's we could have them as a paying client as well. It's super good, of course, but you just don't, especially with somebody you know, or like somebody in your network of some kind, when they work with a brand that you thought was completely inaccessible, it makes your goals a little bit more accessible and how we work. And that's so empowering just to know that it's not even not far. It might be far away, but at least it's in the realm of possibility. Yeah, I think that those are the things that have really opened my mind and made me think super big and ambitious.
Yeah, that's really smart. I didn't even consider that. That's really smart that these companies are hiring for designers. Why not you? You know, why not me?
Years ago, I would see like a company launch a rebrand online, and I would, like a detective, try and find out who exactly does the rebrand, look them up on LinkedIn, look at their whole career background, see if they've like published any articles or done any interviews. I wanted to know everything about them. And it was like this little fun exercise I would do on my own to like find people behind the rebrand. And now I think a lot of companies and agencies are doing a much better job at, crediting who exactly works with it. It's a lot easier to find out who designed that type of work, but like 10 years ago, it was really hard. It was like a little weird hobby of mine. Like, I must know who did this amazing work.
Yeah. I still do it.
Yeah, you're a detective. You're a brand detective.
Detective.
Yeah.
Add that to your bio.
Brand detective. I love that. Well, I'm super curious how you find inspiration in your day to day when you're, either working or not working.
Like I was talking about before, like kind of bookmark things on Twitter or like wherever I find. I try to do that whenever I'm not looking for inspiration. So I have like that whenever I know I'm like aimlessly scrolling through whatever Instagram, Twitter, arena, whatever. And I just kind of make it a point to document it or collect it in some kind of meaningful way because I don't know how and when I'll need it. So I find that when I'm looking for inspiration, it should be accessible to me. Uh, so that's one of the things that I do, which is that when I'm like scouring the internet, just kind of put it into some buckets. Bookmark folders on Twitter has been really good for that. So I have like different categories for like color palettes, for identity, for motion. And I don't know when I'll need it, but like I know that it's selected somewhere and I come back to that when I'm working on a project and I'm thinking about say color or whatever. And when a project is going on, I'm really not looking for inspiration until we reach that point where I need to start kind of making stuff. So until that point, I'm just kind of absorbing as much as possible. And I think a lot of interesting ideas come from those conversations. And maybe you map like something someone said to something you saw. And I love those moments because they happen in complete isolation. Like they don't know that the other the inspiration and the and when you kind of bring them together, it's so great. So yes, I think a lot of times the context is center for the topics that I'm learning new learning about that is new to me. Has a lot of inspiration kind of baked into it. And yeah, I think in terms of like where I find them, like I said, I like to listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of I don't read very much. I've never been a great reader, and it's like thing that I feel very bad about because like when I was young, like all the smart people used to read. I've always had this association of like to be smart, you need to read, but I just never been able to pick up and read them. But I look for a lot of visual inspiration. I have big fat long reading books, blog. I watch a lot of like documentaries about random topics, like about geopolitics or like about uh just about the world. I think, and I find that they use design as well, and they use it in such interesting context. And there's just so much good content on YouTube and stuff these days, and there's so much that I like. I'm kind of passively picking up from there without like kind of putting them into inspiration. Um, yeah, and then of course people. There are lots of amazing incredible designers that I I admire for just their what they bring into the world, like what they create, and yeah, just make the world a better place. At least it makes me very happy. So there's that.
Any specific designers you want to name drop?
Name drop. No, I feel like I'll forget. So I don't want to. I'm afraid I'll forget. Yeah, all like the list of people are.
Do you have any podcasts or blogs or anything that you would
Yeah,
suggest people look at, like ones that are really legit, that are like, this is
really,
not
really.
GPT content, this is actual advice?
Yeah, for sure. I love this newsletter called Every. It it's this- it's this excellent like publication where they write about a bunch of different topics, a lot of stuff about the internet oftentimes, and it's a paid newsletter, but like it's totally worth it. And I just like the style of reading, and mostly I really like the topics that they cover. It's very much in my interest. In terms of podcast, I like Ono Radio, which is by like the Ono company, Pet Foundry. Um, I really like the podcast and the guests that they have on, what they talk about. Then really nice episode. I believe it's with Eric Hugh about how he talks about like blockchain and like type design. It's very, very interesting. There's another podcast by an Indian designer called Kaval Oberoi. The podcast is called It's Design This Way. And it's again an interview style podcast with designers and creative people. Again, it really goes into a lot of deep uh, deep dive into their career and like into their um, design work and things like that. So a lot of cool people that I wanted to hear their thoughts about. Yeah, also are on there.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm always looking for things to actually things to consume, really, but just that are actually worth it and not just junk content. It's hard to tell sometimes, though. You're reading through stuff and you're like, oh, this is a great article, and then you're like, okay, now I'm realizing this is just nonsense. So I'm halfway through.
Yeah.
So.
I just went through my list. There's another podcast called Two Bobs, which is like a lot about consulting and like about practice in general. And it's not design related at all, which is makes it cool. Um, which I in the early days of my this I listened to a lot of stuff from there about like to be a generalist or specialist, about negotiating, about positioning, things like that, which are kind of agnostic of your profession, but are just useful skills to have as a consultant, as a friend. So yeah, I really like forecast as well.
Okay. I'm going to listen to that one. That sounds good. I need a lot of help.
Well, we noticed on your website you have a dream clients list. Maybe tell us a little bit more of that. Is it like a manifestation techniques? We've spoken to a few past guests about the power of manifesting, and we spoke to a couple of people who do something really similar. Jessica Australia and Danielle Leroy, who run Good Side Studio, they do the same thing on their website and really believe in the power of manifestation as well. So I'd love to hear what your approach is with that.
Yeah. Firstly, yeah, shout out to Good Side Studio. Definitely inspired by their list. I've seen it in a couple of other places. A friend of mine on her website has like like a checklist of all the things that she wants to do in her life. And it's not necessarily clients, but like professional goals of different kind. And she actually comes back and kind of checks them off. I've seen that also in a few places, and I think that's really cool. I don't know if I'm that much of an oversharer, so I didn't like put that on the site. But there's actually a story behind like one is because I was inspired by these lists that I'd seen online, including uh Jessica and Danielle. But the other reason was the similar to one of the things that I mentioned before, which was so a few months back, like before I published the website, this designer who runs Design This Way, the podcast cover, and another studio, Irregulars Alliance, they had put out that had worked with the Cricket World Cup and helped with their branding. And the reason I've spoken a lot about cricket, so I should share some context. When I was young, I used to play cricket like professionally. I used to be on the women's national team in the UAE, which is where I live. So I was really into sports. Like I'm still into sports. In an alternate like world, in an alternate life, I would have been a sports person. That would have been completely different. But I still love sports. I still follow a lot of sports, basketball, cricket, things like that. But I saw that they had worked on the branding with a few other agencies. It's like a really big project. It's like the World Cup for cricket. And they were part of the team that worked on that. And as soon as I saw that, I couldn't believe that somebody I knew had worked on something of that scale and of that with like that much. It was like if somebody told me that they have their own space station, they launched a rocket, like it's the same level of insane to me, because I didn't ever think that I would be second degree connected to somebody that did something like that. I realized that if somebody I knew, whose work I know, whose background I know, who can do that, can get a project like that, like why can't I? It may not happen today. It may happen a few years down the line, but I need to, not just for people to find me, but also for myself to kind of put it out there that that's something that I want to do. That's the first one on my list, which is like anything cricket or sports related. But a lot of other projects like that where I watch a Netflix show and I know some of the people who've done like the title sequences or the title design for these incredible shows that I watch these days. Again, I had no idea I would know someone who would have their work on Netflix. And then I think, and I'm just like, why not? So now, yeah, so that's on my list as well. So it kind of came about from seeing what's possible. Because honestly, after these incidents, I realized that I've not been thinking big enough. Like and it's not just about scale, but it's also just about like there's why not? And if I don't kind of put it out there, will it ever happen? So I at least got to manifest it. So yeah, that's the anecdote behind it. But I think that a lot of people have been seeing that, and like clients who are in like a couple of women founders have reached out because I put out like femtech projects that I wanted to work on. So yeah, it happened where like both things happen. One is how partially it's for me, but partially it's for people who are in that domain to know that I'm very interested and would love to work together. Yeah.
Okay. I'm adding that to my website. Well,
I know. That's mine too.
my landing page. Not.
That's so
Yeah.
inspiring. Great advice to really
Yeah.
anyone, whether you're starting out or you're super, experienced. Like, just tell the universe what you want and see what happens. And tell your network
Yeah.
what you want to.
I think the worst thing that could happen is that it doesn't happen, right? And yeah, that's been my new kind of outlook toward asking for things that I'm looking for or that I want.
Yeah.
Just I mean, the least I could do is ask, and the rest, whatever happens, happens. And I've almost always been positively surprised by the response for like people, um, just how they um get back to you or like the way they respond. I think it's been great. Yeah.
So cool. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, if it doesn't happen, it's just like it's just not crossed out on your list.
Yeah. There's still
Who cares?
Yeah. It's a
Just
matter
gonna
of
sit
time.
there. Who cares?
any
That's amazing.
any other advice for aspiring designers?
I think that most advice is quite like anecdotal. So I think that it's in actually like experiencing it that like you learn something. So I highly recommend people just do what brings them joy and makes them have a good time. And I think that that's like the most sustainable way to do something. It's to optimize for having a good time. It's a little bit hedonistic, but I think that's okay when it comes to like your work. And if you want to do this for a long time, why not have a good time when doing it? So I think if you really just optimize for having a good time, I have often gotten feedback that it reflects in the work when I'm having a good time. And yeah, and you can do it for a long time because you have to do it again and again. So yeah, you just try to optimize for that. I think the other tools hopefully will a little bit oversimplistic, I know, but I think that I just find it to be the thing that
Yeah, I completely agree. 1,000%. All of the projects I've done throughout my career where I've had so much fun, they are 1,000% reflected in the outcome. So I completely agree.
yeah. And that's the best because you had a good time doing it. The other person also it reflected in the work so they can feel it. And then hopefully everyone can feel it. So it's just like it's positive, just all the way around. It's just like the sum is greater than its parts. Yeah.
So many great quotes today.
Yeah, I know.
I have so much fun cutting this up into clips.
When this episode comes out, you'll have to retweet. You have to quote tweet that original tweet and be like, this aged well, and you can post a link. So
The power
That's
of
kind of like the-
manifestation.
totally.
Yeah, that's how this whole thing came across. Jess said that she was like, "Can you be a guest on my podcast?" And I said, "No, I would love to be a co-host."
Yeah.
And then she was like, "All right," and I was shocked and so pleasantly surprised, and I was like the most honored I'd ever felt in my life thus far. And I have been married and I have had a child, and I felt that was one of those moments.
Yeah.
But shoot your shot, like just say the thing that you want to say the thing that you want, and maybe it'll happen. And if it doesn't, that's
yeah.
okay.
This really reminds me of a friend, colleague, and another designer, Charlotta. You might have seen her work online as well. She says
We've talked to her.
Actually, she has amazing. She once said this. I don't know if she tweeted it or said it or like I can't remember. but she said like increase your surface area of luck. And that, and like I can never forget, because that's so true. Like you, only if
Love
you
that.
ask will like luck kind of find you in some ways. And I felt so much less icky about like asking for help, or like asking, or just kind of saying like the list, or uh asking to do more of these things like that. I didn't feel like it was, I didn't have the wrong intention. And I felt like when I started to think about it in this way of like surface area of luck, it really changed. I started kind of just shooting my shot as often as I could, and it made sense. So yeah.
I like that a lot. I think about the word luck often. I think I recently tweeted something where I'm like, oh, I've been so lucky to have worked at the companies I've worked at. And one of my past leadership coaches replied to the tweet. She's like, I just want to remind you that it's not necessarily luck. It's hard work and dedication and you putting yourself out there over and over and over again. And she's like, I just want to reframe that for you. I was like, thank you. That's
Wow.
why I'm working with you. And so maybe it's a little bit of luck. I would say it's like maybe like 2 to 5%, but most of it is actually just putting ourselves out there. It's working hard. I think it's safe to say we're all high achievers. And it's really just showing up and doing our best every single day and putting ourselves out there. Luck, I think, plays a smaller role than we actually think it does.
Yeah. I think the other advice would be what you just said, that I would give it to show up. I think showing up is like 98% of the work, to just show up. It really, in every respect, which is for yourself, for your work, for your client, for your team. Yeah, showing up is important.
Yeah. And I would add to that, putting yourself out there and like leaning into the discomfort of that too. Like for years, I was so scared to like post anything on Twitter or LinkedIn. I was scared that whatever I'd say would be stupid or people wouldn't care. And then finally, I feel like it clicked one day. I was like, I actually don't care what people think. And I'm going to say whatever I want. And whoever doesn't like it, cool. Whoever likes it, cool. But I'm doing this for me. And that was the end of me overthinking that.
That's been my journey too, except I've come back to feeling uncomfortable over the last year or so. And now I'm starting to come back out of it, which is so strange to revert back to. I used to be very open. Everything was just stream of consciousness. And then I shut it off. I shut the faucet off of my thoughts. And I took a step back and I was like, I need to be professional now. I need to start acting like an adult woman and stop being such a weirdo on the internet. And then now I see that was part of it. Like that was part of me, I miss that person, I miss just being a little weirdo.
Totally.
On Twitter. I liked it.
Show up as yourself.
Whenever I meet someone in person and they tell me that they like have read my tweet, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm immediately concerned. I'm just like, not good. Yeah, we started
I like your
off
tweets,
with
by the way. I think they're very good.
I like your tweets. But no, that was not me fishing, but I was just saying that yeah, it's so weird when that happens. I don't know how I feel about it. But I've tried to like rephrase. There was a point where I was just like, I need to be a content creator. Like I need to be like give value online. But I think I stopped doing that so much, or like thinking like that, when I just started to think about like, can I just share what I know and like share my own experiences? I'm not an expert in anything else except my own experiences. I'm gonna this is my expertise, my life, and what I've learned. So sometimes, and what I have also noticed is that in terms of how popular it is to share your experiences versus share advice. Sharing experiences is not popular. Like people, it's not as, it doesn't pop off like people sharing 10 tips to do something. The more decisive something is, the more like people kind of, if they get more engagement. But honestly, I don't care because that's just not who I am. And I would feel really, like you said, I would feel really conscious about it and kind of second guess myself a lot if I started to share like blanket
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I think there was like a moment where everyone started becoming content creators, and I was like, I can't do that. But there was just so much stuff that people were saying that I was like, I don't even want to
Yeah.
contribute to any of this now. So, but now I'm like, you know what? I'm too old for this. I'm too old to worry about anything. Just whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like seasons.
Yeah. I'm in that season of my life.
Mm-hmm. It changes, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I know we're slightly over time, so we can start wrapping here, but I just wanted to thank you so much again for joining us today. Love the conversation. I can't wait for our audience to hear all about you and all of your nuggets of wisdom. So thank you so much.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, like, one of the things that, so a few months back, I had posted about I wanted to do more like sharing and talk and things like that, and you responded to me, which is like a live example of just like asking what you want to do, and just in right time, right moment, you reached out, you got in touch with me, and I was so happy to be here. So, yeah, thank you really for responding to me and for having me on the podcast.